Episode 288. Come Follow Me. Staying Grounded. Relationships, Agency, and Trusting Your Own Revelation with Heather Rackham.
Welcome to Latter-day Life Coaches, the podcast where each episode is a conversation between me, Heather Rackham, and one of my amazing coach colleagues. Each coach here is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and a highly trained, experienced life coach making a great impact in the lives of their clients. And together, we have one main goal, helping you live your best life no matter what. You ready for this conversation with the coach? Here we go.
In this solo Come Follow Me episode, Heather explores two powerful stories from 1 Kings 12 and 13 through the lens of relationships, personal agency, and emotional health. Drawing on her coaching experience, she discusses what happens when people feel unheard, the dangers of abandoning ourselves in relationships, and how to navigate situations when someone else's spiritual certainty conflicts with our own personal revelation. This episode offers thoughtful insights on boundaries, honesty, discernment, and trusting both God and the guidance we have personally received. Please enjoy.
Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast today. Here we are, the end of June, and mine has been fantastic and lots of good things still to come. I have a wedding and some good family trips ahead. I hope yours still has many memory-making moments ahead for you, but I am glad to be here and continuing our Come Follow Me series. And just as a reminder, like I say, we are not scriptorians here on the Latter-day Life Coach podcast. There is lots of fantastic scriptorians out there in the podcast world. We are life coaches and we're doing what we do really well. And so we are looking at the Come Follow Me lessons, the scriptures in the Come Follow Me through the lens of what we do professionally. And I'm flying solo today. So hopefully this conversation with myself can really be a conversation between you and me, that you can think of responses or rebuttals or, oh, I agree, or, oh, no, I think I disagree in your own mind, so that this can be not just me, but it can provoke some thoughts for you to explore. So anyway, let's get started. One of my favorite things about this series, about doing the Come Follow Me, is getting to look at the scriptures through a real life lens, right? So relationships, emotions, agency, personal growth, all the things we as coaches spend our lives helping people navigate, and we get to kind of talk about some of those great things today. So we're going to mainly focus on 1 Kings chapters 12 and 13 today. And there are two things that I want to talk about. The first is relationships, and specifically when you feel unheard in relationships. And the second is differing revelation and the way we sometimes use spiritual language with each other and how that can affect us in relationships. So let's start with 1 Kings 12. So after Solomon dies, his son Rehoboam becomes king, and the people come to him and they basically say, this has been hard. Can you lighten our load? Like, your father has not been the easiest person to live and preside under, and we would love some help feeling like our burdens have been lightened. They are asking to be heard. So he gets two sets of advice. He gets advice from older counselors that tell him to listen and to respond kindly and to serve the people. He also gets some advice from younger peers that tell him he should be harsher, he should assert his power, he should be more forceful. He chooses harshness and he dismisses the people's concerns, and the result is not just tension. The result is that the kingdom actually splits. And I think sometimes that we read this story and we think, well, that escalated really quickly, but I don't think it did. I think, like most things, most struggles in relationships or blow-ups in relationships happen layer upon layer over time. I think that this moment was likely a result of a long pattern of people not feeling heard. And we all know what that feels like. So it's maybe not on the scale of dividing a kingdom, but in relationships where you think, I keep trying, I don't feel heard, this relationship feels really one-sided, or, nothing changes in this relationship. And eventually you start to ask yourself, how long do I keep trying here? And I want to be really careful and thoughtful in how I talk about this, because I don't think the answer is always we just abandon the relationship and give up. Some relationships stretch us. Some relationships expose things in us that need healing and growth. Some relationships invite us to become more honest, grounded, or mature. But there's also relationships where we slowly begin abandoning ourselves in the process of trying to keep the connection. And that's different, right? So maybe the better question isn't, should I leave this relationship? Maybe the question is, am I accepting this relationship for what it actually is? Or am I exhausting myself, hoping it will finally become something different? Because that's what keeps people really stuck. It's not always the relationship itself, but the constant hope that if they just explain themselves one more time, if I loved a little harder, if I tried a little bit more, then maybe this relationship would be different. Maybe this person will finally become someone they've consistently shown they do not currently have the capacity to be. That is oftentimes our hope. And I want to say this gently, because especially in our culture, many people stay a very long time. And I'm not just talking about marriage or like covenant relationships. I'm just talking about any relationship, right? Where there has been a covenant made, or a relationship where it's just been a friendship, or it's a family that we are, siblings or parents. When I talk about staying, I mean just continuing to work in a relationship. So many people stay a very long time because they deeply value commitment. They deeply value forgiveness, covenant relationships, loyalty, and hope. And that doesn't make us weak. That makes us human beings. That makes us strong. That makes us committed, mindful, caring human beings. The question is simply, has your hope turned into self-abandonment? And that's a very important distinction. I think this is where we really have to discern what our part is, because people tend to do one of two things. They either take responsibility for everything or responsibility for nothing. So here are a few questions I think that can help. First, have I actually been honest in this relationship? Not perfect. I'm not saying not dramatic, just honest. Have you clearly expressed what you feel and you need? Or have you expected someone to read your mind? Have you not been honest? Have you just assumed and thought, well, a good friend or a good sibling would know without me having to tell them? That's not honesty. That's like playing games. That's playing guessing games. Okay, so the second question is, who am I being in this relationship? Am I being someone who's grounded? Can I be myself? Can I stay kind in this relationship without shrinking and being somebody smaller? Am I playing small? Or am I constantly walking on eggshells, avoiding conflict, over accommodating, or becoming reactive? Because healthy relationships stretch us, but they should not require us to disappear in order to maintain them. And the third question you can ask is, am I trying to control their response? This one matters a lot. Your responsibility is to show up clearly and honestly. Your responsibility is not to force understanding, not to make someone change, and not to manage their reaction. That is theirs to own. And that's hard because sometimes people will not hear you. They won't change. They won't meet you where you are. They may not have the capacity. And that does not automatically mean that you failed. It does not mean you didn't try hard enough. Sometimes it just simply means you need to become honest about the limits of what this relationship can currently be. And I want to say that one more time because I think that's really important. Sometimes it just simply means that you need to become honest about the limits of what this relationship can currently be. And I think that's actually what we see in 1 Kings 12. Rehoboam didn't lose connection simply because people disagreed with him. He lost it because he could not tolerate hearing discomfort without becoming defensive. And that happens in relationships all the time. Rehoboam didn't lose connection simply because people disagreed with him. He lost it because he could not tolerate hearing discomfort without becoming defensive. And that happens in relationships all the time. Okay, so that's the first section, the first part about relationships that I want to talk about. We're going to shift gears a little bit here and talk about a completely different concept, but something still that affects us in relationships. And this is in chapter 13. We have a man of God who receives very clear instruction. He's told to go to the people and teach them something. But he tells this person, don't eat with them, don't drink with them, and don't return the same way. So very clear instructions. I don't know about you, but I don't often receive instruction that clear. But this man has received this instruction. Then the other prophet, there's another man, a prophet that comes and says, God told me that it's okay. You should come and eat with me. You should come back this way and be with us. But it wasn't true. So the first man of God who was told not to eat or drink with the people and to go home another way, he abandons what he already knew in order to follow someone else's voice. And I honestly think this story matters a lot in religious culture because we hear phrases like this a lot. I prayed about it. I feel inspired to tell you this. I feel like God wants me or to do this, or I feel like God wants you to do this. And sometimes what someone else says conflicts with what we ourselves feel. And I think this requires a lot of maturity and discernment. Now, to be clear, I absolutely believe there are moments where people genuinely feel prompted to say something loving or important to somebody else. But I also think we need to pause and ask ourselves, why am I using spiritual language here? Why do I feel like I need to lead with, I've prayed about this or I feel inspired to share this? Why do you need to use that language? Because sometimes, if we're honest, it's persuasion, it's pressure, it's fear, it's an attempt to add authority to our opinion. Sometimes it's coming from a clean and loving place and very genuine, but I think it's very important to understand the difference there. Sometimes spiritual language can become a way to avoid ownership. Well, God told me, or I feel like this is what God is telling me to do, which can subtly communicate things like, you can't question this, or this isn't really mine to own, right? Like we take ownership out of it. And I think we need to be careful with that because God honors agency. The Spirit invites, it does not coerce. And I think one of the most important things we can learn is how to stay grounded in what we ourselves have genuinely received. It's not arrogant, it's not being stubborn, but it's honesty. And because the real danger in the story isn't just that someone lied in this 1 Kings 13 story, that's not the real danger. It's that a man of God stopped trusting what he already knew. He didn't trust himself to, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I heard this wrong. Maybe what I believed, maybe this person has more spirituality in him and he received a better answer than me. I think this really is about trust and not abandoning the things that we know and we feel confident in. We do that all the time. We second guess ourselves. We assume someone else must know better. We override our own clarity because another person sounds more confident or more spiritual. Now, I'm not saying truth is endlessly flexible. I do believe in doctrine. I do believe there are eternal truths. But I also believe that faithful people can apply eternal principles differently depending upon their stewardship, timing, capacity, and relationship with God. And that requires us to allow people space for their own process. So maybe instead of constantly asking who's right, I see this sometimes listen, like this is the doctrine and I feel prompted to do it this way, but somebody else practices it in a different way. And so then we start to think, well, who's right and who's wrong? Like if this is the doctrine, it should all look the same in all of our lives. And that's just simply not true. So rather than saying, who's right, it's, am I staying grounded in what I have been given while allowing others to do the same? And something magical happens when we can look at things that way. It reduces judgment for other people rather than thinking, oh, they're doing it wrong. We can see that it's possible that they are like this, they are doing this according to how they feel inspired to practice these doctrines, these principles of the gospel in their life, or whatever it is that it might be, just doing life in general. And that also gives us grace for ourselves when our path might look a little bit differently and we feel like we're on the right path. That gives us courage and strength to do our own thing. So it's important for us to really honor agency and the ability for us to receive personal revelation and honor that that can look different for other people. Because like I said, it offers us so many things. It offers us grace. It offers us love for other people, less judgment, and all those things. So both of these stories ultimately come back to agency. Can I stay rooted in who I am without trying to control someone else's process? Can I allow discomfort in a relationship without abandoning myself? Can I trust God enough to let other people have their own journey too? Anyway, I just wanted to share those thoughts with you from Come Follow Me this week. And honestly, this is really one of the reasons why I believe life coaching is so valuable, because sometimes when we are inside a relationship or wrestling with difficult decisions or trying to discern what is ours versus somebody else's, like what do we have ownership in here? What could I change? What could I do differently to help this relationship grow versus what somebody else is to own? It's really hard to see clearly from the inside. A good life coach is not there to tell you what to do. They're there to help you slow down, untangle what you're feeling, recognize your own patterns and where they may be showing up here and holding you in, keeping you stuck, separate fear from clarity, and to reconnect you with your own agency and your relationship with God. And sometimes we need someone outside the solution who can help us see where we might be abandoning ourselves, overfunctioning, people pleasing, or giving away our own clarity. I actually have a session with my life coach right after I get done recording here to help me work through some of these things that I am seeing in my own life. But sometimes we simply need someone who can hold space for us while we sort through complicated emotions and relationships in a healthier way. And thankfully, I happen to know a few really good life coaches. If you're looking for support, you can find faith-based life coaches who understand our LDS culture, our, relationships. They understand, emotional health and personal growth. So head on over to ldslifecoaches.com and you can find a coach there who can help you untangle and unwind relationships and see what's yours to own and what's also yours to let go of. So thanks for being here with me today, you guys. It's so fun. It's one of my favorite parts of my job. And I will see you again next time.
Hey, we just wanted to thank you for spending part of your day here with us at Latter-day Life Coaches and being part of this conversation. Share this with your friends so that you can have a conversation with them on this topic as well. And as always, subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Have a good one, my friends.